The morning papers are the retail expert Kate Hardcastle and the photographer Cambridge Jones. Welcome to you again. Cambridge, you're going to start by looking at the Telegraph, and this is the GCSE fiasco rumbles on. A report out today, and they're looking at really how the pupils were let down by the exam system.
Yeah, and in a funny way, it looks a bit like a playground squabble in itself, doesn't it? Because you got that first round where they all blame the boards, the exam boards, and say, what the hell's going on with this stuff? And then they turn around and go, well, it's all the teacher's fault, isn't it? And the teacher goes, no, it's not, it's all your fault. But I do think underlying it is quite a serious issue. I mean, because what they're saying has happened here is that the teachers work out what pupils need, what scores in their assessed work in order to hit the right mark in the final result, because they know roughly what they'll get in the exam. So they make sure the first bit's about right, so that they'll get the required, in order that the whole school looks okay with the right number of C grades or above. But I mean, on one level, I've always thought that exams are extraordinary anyway. The idea that I could sit my exams as I did in mid-Wales, or you could sit them in Yorkshire, and we're somehow on some... It's an absurd system anyway. So the fact they found some way to tweak it doesn't seem entirely surprising. But I think it's a hard one. I don't know how you get around it, because I understand the need to do assessed work.
But do you think that assessed work is the way forward, or we should be returning to the sort of O-level type system where it's all based on that one exam that you revise for, and you go in and you sit down for 3 hours, and that's how you're tested?
I imagine if you asked each of us, we might all ask... I happen to be very good at retaining information for a very short period of time and doing very well in exams, so I love it.
And I absolutely hated exams, so we've had a huge row and we've not got any further forward.
Surely the only way that you can ensure that there's going to be parity across the board is if all the marking is done centrally.
Exactly. So I didn't understand how I could sit these exams in mid-Wales and somehow be compared to someone in John O'Groats or Land's End on some system that was supposed to be... Then when I went for a job at ICI or wherever I didn't go, that they would have, in theory, measured them against them. That seems slightly absurd to me.
Let's move on to the Independent. And Kate, you're having a look at the Comet story.
Well, I'm afraid, as always, my phone starts to ring a lot, and you sense, as I did yesterday, the day before, that something's going to happen, and it's a case of wagering which name's going to come up next. Sadly, if we look at it from a people perspective, you know, the real issue, the people that are looking at jobs, perhaps 6,500 people that are going to be at risk. We know the retail sector's been hit so much this year. It's not a particularly well-played sector anyway. 240 stores are going to be at closure. The effect that's got on the landscape of retail parks and town centres. I have to look at the strategy of the business and organisation. I have to understand why it's happened. And if you think about your experience with Comet, if you've had one of late, it had no point of difference. It had no real reason to exist. The internet had come in and always will. It's a massive growing market will offer in terms of value, and therefore retailers right now have to think, and I know it's a tactile word, but they have to think about the emotional intelligence of shopping. How are you engaging? Customer service? What is the point of difference? Why would people shop to you? What is
So Comet didn't have an internet strand then?
I'm so sorry?
Comet, did they have an internet strand?
They had an internet offer, but in terms of a retail premise, this is the bricks and mortar offer, and this is a large part of the business. You have to have a reason to shop there. And again, this is a brand, again, when the names come up, I am rarely shocked or surprised, because they tend to be the retailers that just don't have that draw to for the customer. And if you want to survive, that's what you're going to need right now.
So you can predict where we should be looking next?
Well, sadly, I've got probably a bit of a death toll list, but, you know, let's hope they do something about it.
Okay.
You've got to look after your customers. That's number one.
Number one. Kate and Cambridge, thanks for the moment.